The word curtain annoys me because I always want to say it. Curtain, ta, 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 put the T in there. It is there for a reason. But because I'm Merkin and I don't think about all my words when I say them, I end up saying curtain, no T, and I dislike it when I say that, but I'm also not aware of it. I'll probably annoy myself in editing by saying curtain a lot, and then when I have to hear it back, I'll be like, ooh, curtain, curtain, curtain. So this house has a lot of windows, which is great, but it also has a lot of neighbors, which is normal. So as much as I would love to open up the windows and just leave them open all the time and let all the light in, we're gonna need some curtains. Some already have curtains, some already have blinds, some have nothing. So it's time to cover that which needs to be covered for the times when it needs to be covered. Words. And there's an absolute buttload of stuff on my to-do list for today and for this week and for this month. So what better time to shove that all aside and do something else. We're gonna make some curtains. Lots of curtains. So most of the house is still not furnished or decorated or anywhere close to being done at all. But this seemed like a good first step. Oh, I got so much sunlight right here. Sun from a window that needs a curtain. So how about we go on a whirlwind window tour and I'll show you what needs to be done. Let's go. Oh God. Is this feeling like a whirlwind yet? So first up, we have the sitting room, or living room as Matt calls it, because he doesn't like calling it the sitting room. Please ignore all of the crap that's still in here. Oh my goodness, you're so cute. As you'll observe, there are already curtains in the living room. However, we don't like them. They're lace, they look kind of old, they're really thick, so like they're very hard to pull aside if you want to actually open them. So we are going to take them down, fold them up, put them away, and replace them with something else. And that means I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curtains for the sitting room. Next up, there is the dining room, which also already has curtains. Curtains. We don't mind these curtains. I'm not replacing them. Dining room is fine. Then we get to the kitchen. Sorry for the weird angle, but I'm trying not to like show the front of the house, which has these 2 windows in it. This one, I don't mind. It has blinds on it if we ever want to close it, and I don't feel like it needs anything else. This one, on the other hand, has nothing. It is directly facing the front of the house, and at night when we are cooking dinner, we are what my sister would call fish in a fishbowl. So we're gonna put a curtain on the lower half of this for slight privacy, which takes us to number 6 on the curtain count. And we return to my studio where we have this random small side window that's great for letting some extra light in here, but also creates a glare on my computer and is just kind of there. Number 7. Also in my studio, and the curtain of probably grandest importance to moi, this. Not a window, but still it's gonna get a curtain to cover it up. Cannot have washer and dryer just always hanging out in my studio. So I'm gonna put a nice curtain that covers the whole thing and doubles as a photography backdrop. Huzzah! Next up we have the bedroom, which has 2 windows in it. Nothing covering him at this time, not even any blinds. Currently we have some random scraps of fabric covering them because otherwise I would wake up in the morning as soon as the sun rose, and that is not what I want to do. 2 more curtains on the count. And finally, I think finally, we have the guest bedroom, which has 1 window. It does have blinds over it, so it's like fine for now, but it already had a curtain rod there, and we want to add some curtains to be pretty and cover up the little gaps on the side, because why not? So if I counted correctly, that should be 11 curtains? That's a lot of curtains to make at one time. Matt also has like 3 windows in his studio that he wants curtains over, but I'm gonna do those whenever we do that. 11 seems like enough for now. So I'm going to head out first to Remainders, which is the crafting thrift store here in LA, my favorite place, and see if I can get all of the fabric that I need for like $4 a yard or less, which is what they sell their fabric for there. If I can't find what I like there, then I will head on over to good old Joann and dig through the clearance, because let's be real, I'm not spending too much on any of these curtains. They're practical, I'm not picky, they're not like statement draperies like you see in some gorgeous homes in magazines. I don't feel a need to spend more than like $7 a yard on any of these. That being said, it is part of our home, so I do want to do it a little nicer than like turning an old sheet for $1 from Goodwill into curtains. I'm going a little nicer than that. These do need to hang up for potentially years to come. And of course, I'll need to get all of those notions, curtain rods, curtain rings, curtain hooks, all of that stuff. Yeah. Trip to Home Depot might also be in there. Are we ready for this? I am also very hungry, so I'm very ready for this because leaving the house means getting food. Let's go shopping. Whoops. Well, that didn't go as planned. Oh no. So after blindly driving my way all the way over to Remainders, I remembered, or was rather reminded, that they're not open today. Why? So my plan is slightly foiled. I did, however, still go to the good old Joann. Found all of the curtain rods that I need, I think. Plus I got a bunch of hardware, so I think I have everything to hang the curtains that I'll be making. Again, I think being the key word. However, I was extremely disappointed with the clearance selection at Joann. There really was not anything good, anything that could be used and was clearanced to a price that I approve of. Sorry, but when it's clearanced and it's still like $10 a yard, $14 a yard, I'm like, that's not clearance. So everything is just gonna go on hold for a few days while I do some other jobs and until I can get back to Remainders to dig through their fabric and hopefully find everything that I need. Here's hoping that's in like a couple days and not a couple weeks. Y'all, the fabric gods of cheapskatedness were with me. Because Remainders was closed on Monday when I tried to go, and I had to work the next 2 days after that, I ended up getting there on the exact day when they were starting their buy one, get one free on all fabric. And what that means for them is that as long as you buy more than 1 yard, it's basically half price. So that means I just got, oh, I've already forgotten how much the yardage was. I'm pretty sure it was over 70 yards of fabric for $2 a yard. $2 a yard! I was in there for hours. So not all of this is for curtains. I of course got distracted by, you know, options, but I also ended up getting a bunch of different options for each curtain or each room because I'm still having trouble visualizing what I want, and Matt has a lot of opinions, but they're all the kind of opinions that like I have when he asks me what I want for dinner. I don't know what I want, I just know what I don't want. Same goes for him when it comes to decorating this house. There's a lot of things he's like, no, I don't like that. But then I'm like, well, what do you want? And he doesn't know. But in all fairness, I don't know either. So I just kind of went nuts. Let's pause and do some folding. I'm not pleased with the fold on this, but also I'm tired of folding, so it's done. I'm pooped. And then as soon as Matt gets home, I'll let him give me his opinions on which fabric for which location, but then I'll do exactly whatever I want anyway. That's boring though, so let's cut to me already knowing which fabric I'm going to use. Watch out. You'd think, with all those fabric options, I couldn't possibly need any more. Yep, I needed more. So after traipsing around the house with the piles of fabric, comparing it to wall colors, holding it up to windows, getting Matt's opinion, getting my own opinion, we kind of discovered that most of it didn't work. So we went back to Remainders today. This time, I went to Home Depot first and got a bunch of paint sample cards and then came and matched them to the wall colors of our rooms. They're all very specific colors. And if you get a green, for instance, that is similar but not quite the same as the green paint on the wall, then when you hang it up, it just looks wrong. So armed with paint samples, labeled with all the different rooms, we went back to Remainders, got more fabric, and this is it. I'm calling it. If I don't have the right fabric in all of my stores, in all of the new stuff, then we're just gonna have to get creative. Thank God for $2 a yard. Here's what I did for each curtain. Curtain. I started with the small window in my studio because small equals easy, and also I didn't care too much about what went up there. After comparing several small chunks of fabric, I decided the blue stripes would be the best. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And what luck, the piece of fabric was exactly the right size. I cut it in half so I could have 2 panels, then pulled out the huge chunk of white twill I always have on hand because that's what I most commonly embroider on. 2 pieces of the same size, and that will be the lining. I then sewed each of those sets into basically like a pillowcase and turned them right side out. Then I had to figure out the hanging options because my plan had been to stitch these little plastic rings on the back layer and string those onto the curtain rod, but oh no, as luck would have it, they didn't fit. Nix that. Luckily, I have a bunch of these wooden rings accumulating because my favorite macrame cord just happens to come with them, so I'm going to use the small ones instead. I realized I would have to stitch through both layers of fabric while attaching the rings because otherwise it would sag oddly. So I decided to cover that area with an additional stripe ribbon sort of thing. Basically, I cut a piece off the end of another chunk of the same fabric and folded over the edges, ironed everything, then stitched it right down the dark blue stripe so the stitching would blend in, and ta-da! I have a little decorative edging thing that will handily cover where I stitch on the rings. Spacing out the rings took a ridiculously long time because, math. Hand-stitched them on securely, then it was just a quick hem, which I did with a zigzag stitch because why not, and time to hang. Ta-da! Oh, I also made some little tie-back strips with the leftover fabric because since this material is pretty thick, the curtains won't really stay open on their own. They want to bounce back to the center. I just stapled those strips directly into the window frame because again, why not? And look how freaking cute. I'm actually really pleased with these, especially as my first attempt. 1 down, 10 to go. The kitchen curtains were super easy. Matt surprisingly approved this lovely rainbow striped fabric that, once again, I already had in my stock. I cut out a 45-inch strip, then sliced that in half to make the 2 panels. I was going to put on these rings, but once Matt hung the rod, one of those really thin cafe rods, it definitely seemed better to just do the tube top or rod pocket top or whatever. Then I pinned up the hem exactly to brush against the windowsill, sewed across that, and another one in the bag. 2 done, 9 to go. Curtain number 3 is for the guest bedroom. I decided on this fabric I got during my second trip to Remainders. It's actually pretty similar to the kitchen curtain fabric in texture, stripiness, and rainbowness. I want to do tab tops on these so they'll tie onto the rod with cute little knots. I started by cutting out 2 strips, each 8 inches tall, then sliced those into 10 pieces each, which was delightfully easy thanks to the stripes. I didn't even have to measure. I cut another 2 strips, each 3 inches wide, and then sliced the remaining fabric in half. For the tabs, I just folded each little rectangle in half and sewed an L shape, then turned it right side out, and that's it. Now to do that 19 more times. Okay. Tabs done, I pinned them evenly in pairs across the top of the curtain.
5 ties.
5 sets on each.
Across the front.
Then I pinned the thin strip of fabric on top of that, sewed across the top, and flipped it over to make that nice top seam with all the tabs inserted.
Y'all, did this not make frickin' adorable overalls?
Hung them up to test the length and pinned the hem up, and then I just did a single fold and a zigzag stitch across the bottom because I really couldn't be bothered with the whole double fold stuff. And huzzah! 3 curtains down! I'm averaging 1 a day right now, even though some only take a few hours. I wouldn't want to get curtain burnout or anything. stripes again. That's 4 for 4 now. But see, when you want a pattern but don't want anything floral, it really does narrow down your options. This fabric, also from my second trip to Remainders, is for the bedroom curtains. It would be better to just cover one window with it instead of two, but you know, we make do. We got the rings with clips on them to hang these up, but I really don't like the look of the clips on the top of the panels, so instead I'm using these metal hook things, which you can then hook through the rings themselves. I had to do a bit of experimenting to figure out how this was going to work, but it was actually pretty straightforward in the end. I cut the double wide piece of fabric in half for 2 panels and debated on whether I should line these for a solid 5 minutes.
Do I want to line these?
Decided on no, probably should have gone with yes. Oh well, too late. Hemmed up the 2 sides, then I stitched some twill tape across the top and folded that over for a clean edge. I evenly spaced out the hooks across the twill tape and made sure that they were all stabbed in there really well. I guess they stay because of gravity. And then I just stitched the other edge of the twill tape down, and that was really it. I did make myself iron these. Probably should have been ironing every single curtain I've made, but I'm way too lazy for that. Also, I still only have 1 baby iron and ironing board, so it takes ages to iron anything. A big girl ironing board is on my to-buy list. And a steamer. And there we have it. We did plan on doing these single panel curtains since our headboard is so big, but yeah, it would have looked better with 2 panels on either side or just double the size of panel that we have here. But when dealing with thrifted fabric, you have limitations. These will definitely work for now, and the good news is that they only cost me about $6 or $7 total, so if I want to make some different ones in a month or so, it's all good. I can just turn these into a dress. And we're moving on to the living room for curtains number 6 through 10. I'm going with 2 different fabrics for this room. For the side windows, I was planning to use this green linen looking material, but I must have measured in my sleep because when I checked it again, it was not big enough for both. Ugh. So I switched to this lovely white sheer material that has little butterflies and beetles and such embroidered on it, and I think this is actually a really good choice. We want lots of light to come through these curtains, so I'm not going to line it. I just cut out 2 strips of fabric that I'll sew onto the side hems to be little ties. I tried out that method where you pull 1 string out of the woven fabric to get a perfectly straight guideline for cutting, and it worked so well. I mean, obviously it worked. It's a tried and true technique. I've just never done it before.
Brilliant.
The rest of the material I cut in half, and each piece is actually almost twice the length of the window, so there will be some decent scrunching, which is going to be nice since these are closed almost all the time. They were super easy to make. I just sewed the strips into 4 rectangles and turned those right side out. Then I did a rolled hem on the side of the panels, stitching the ties into the sides as I went. I added the rod pocket. I'm sorry, I can't take the term rod pocket seriously. It just sounds like a synonym for a codpiece. Let's go back. I added the tube top, then hemmed them to the exact right length to sit on the sill with a nice wide hemline. Fun side story, when I went to hang them up, I had taken down the old curtains, and right as I pointed the camera at the window so I could, film hanging them up for this video, my neighbor came out of his side door and we made direct eye contact through the window, and oh my god, you guys, this is why I need curtains. That interaction was basically my nightmare. For the other living room curtains on that main window, I'm going to use this lovely white and tan checked material, which is fairly hefty but still translucent. These were so easy. I literally just cut the material into 2 smaller panels and 1 large, hemmed up the sides of all 3, and folded over the top to make that tube. They're exactly the right length for the windows already, so I'm leaving the selvage on the bottom edge and skipping the hemming. Down with the old gross curtains. Seriously, I didn't realize how gross they were until we took them down. Up with the new curtain rods. Clearly the puppy and I are being very helpful here. And slide on the new curtains. Delightfully simple. I do kind of want to tie something around the center like I did on the side curtains, but rather than fabric, I think like a metal ring. Like a napkin ring or a bracelet would look really cool. Something to keep an eye out for in the coming weeks. And finally, we've reached curtain number 11, the biggest, the longest, the heftiest, and the hardest. This fabric is a chunk. Matt put up the rod for me the other day, at which point I realized it needed to go higher if I wanted to really utilize this for a photography backdrop. At the original height, it would be just above my head, which means I don't have a lot of room and I'd have to be cropping photos really short. Instead, we hung it at the very top of this thing above the cabinets. This meant I needed way more fabric, which is where the chunk came in. I'm planning to make 2 panels here, and I want to put small grommets in the top so it can be hung on these S-hooks like a shower curtain. In fact, I'm pretty sure we got these from our old shower curtain. This just means it will open and close really easily, and I can quickly take it down and put up a different curtain sometime in the future when I have time to make a different curtain. But, you know, maybe like a black backdrop eventually, or a brightly colored one or something. I'll have options. So let's figure this out. I have enough fabric to make 3 panels, each 100 inches long. However, I only have enough lining fabric to cover the back of 2 panels. So I can either do smaller panels that are lined or larger panels that aren't. After pinning up all the fabric to test it, I decided the larger panels will look better even without the lining. I like the lovely drape when they're closed. So I cut the 3rd panel in half long ways and sewed each half onto the other panels, doing French seams due to the whole lack of lining thing.
Hello.
Then I turned over the top twice to 1.5 inches just so that there would be some support and thickness there. This fabric is a little stretchy after all. And I sewed that down on both the top and the bottom edges. I have to admit, part of the reason I left this one till last is that I'm a little scared of putting grommets in. But if you are also intimidated by grommets, don't be. They were so easy to put in, and let's be real, banging on something is fun. And yes, this is the best way I could think of to use the concrete under the anvil without having to fully go outside. I let many mosquitoes into our house. I only have 12 of these S-hooks I'm using to hang the curtain, so I was hoping to just do 6 grommets in each panel, but yeah, that didn't work. I added 1 in between each, so now there's 11, and that looks much, much better. I just need more hooks now. And more grommets, of course. Always more supplies. And finally, I just added a hem to the bottom so it brushes the ground. I'm personally not a fan of the whole curtain hems laying on the ground thing. It just seems impractical. I guess people just think it looks picturesque, like a really long hem on an evening gown, but you know, if you're wearing a dress out, it can't actually be dragging all over the ground, and the same goes for curtains that are actually going to be frequently opened and closed, right? Y'all, they're done. Whoa! That was a lot of curtains. It was a lot of sewing very, very long straight seams. A little bit boring. Great practice on making straight seams, which, let's be real, I'm not exactly known for having good old straight seams. I tend to be very wobbly when I sew, even though I don't really have shaky hands or anything. If I don't actually draw a straight line on my fabric, then I'm just like bloop, 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 bloop. I'm all over the place. It is nice to be able to finally cover our windows. There are a few that I may want to redo sooner rather than later. And by sooner, I mean like in a year or two, not like next month. I learned some fun stuff on this project. First of all, if you like little kids with British accents, but you also like absolute chaos, watch Junior Bake Off, which is now on Netflix, at least here in America. It was simultaneously making me so stressed and so happy. I'm not kidding, at least in the beginning, probably half of what they made had been dropped on the floor. It was just constant dropping things on the floor. And then they're just like, whoops, 5-second rule, and they go on with it. Anyway, that's what I was watching during most of these curtain constructions, and it was delightful. The other thing I discovered is that I really thrive in half days, not like only working a half day, but doing 2 different jobs each on half of the day. Like during pretty much this entire project, I would get up in the morning and spend the first half of the day editing. Then I would have lunch and spend the second half of the day making a pair of curtains. And usually when I'm editing, I am spending an entire day, 10 to 12 hours, the next day, sometimes the next day, just editing. Like I just want to finish a video from start to finish, and that often takes me a while because I'm not good at editing. So it becomes quite a slog, and it's just like, oh, it's overwhelming, it's exhausting. By the time I get to the end of the video, I find myself not caring anymore. If you notice quality going down in my videos as they reach the end, that's why. But also, if I try to sew all day long, it really wears on me, and I become both bored and burnt out a little of it that day. And then I just like start to not care about it as much and lack motivation. I don't know, I think this is a general problem. Half days, man, they're great. Spend the first half of your day doing one type of project and the second half of your day doing a different type of project. It really made me feel so much more motivated and so much more productive at the end of the day. Time management, good stuff. It was nice to get back into sewing here in my new studio with something simple like that, but I am very much looking forward to sewing some clothing very, very soon. Like tomorrow. In retrospect, is making 11 curtains in one video even that interesting? Too late.